Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the reality recap. I'm your host, Queen E. And again, I'm a little bit under the weather. I'm so sorry. I don't know what it is about this time of year. My immune system is absolute trash, but I do love to yap. And so my body's just going to have to be okay with it. Okay. Because we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to get into the Love is Blind reunion. Now, at first, I wasn't sure if I should be excited to watch it because everybody's saying this could have been an email. We didn't need this reunion. Take it back and try it again. So I was like, damn, was it that bad? I didn't think it was that bad. And I think it's because the season itself was also bad. So I wasn't expecting a stellar reunion. But for the season we had, the reunion we got was kind of on par with the season we had. So I wasn't too mad at it. I think a lot of things were addressed. More things could have been addressed. And we're going to get into that. But before I do, please make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe as you guys have been doing. I love the engagement so much. Y'all engaged so much that I was getting DMs saying, girl, how you gonna lie on Allie's name like that? It was Annie who was doing all of those, stalkery type stuff. You are absolutely correct. I am so sorry. I don't know why my mind was stuck on Allie so much. I meant Annie. So Miss Allie, don't come for me, baby girl. My memory is not the best. I apologize. All of that was meant for Annie, okay? But anyways, like, comment, share, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Reality Recap Pod. And you can also listen to us on all podcast streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, where you can listen ad-free with Apple subscriptions. Let's get into this reunion. Respectfully, Miles Smith, we didn't need it. We did not need a live performance. I mean, I'm sure this was fun for the people who were in the room. You're there for a long time. You probably have to break for dinner and all that kind of stuff. So maybe to keep morale up, they needed a live performance. But as the viewers, we didn't need that. We did not need that. So respectfully, Miles, let's not do that again. A great voice, beautiful song. Just taking up time. You know what I'm saying? So they swiftly move past that and they start with Jordan and Megan. So she says that the ultimate reason why things didn't work out between her and Jordan was the fact that their lifestyles just didn't align, and she refuses to settle for potential again. The big issue that a lot of people will have with Megan is the fact that she knew the lifestyle differences from the pods. So to now cite that as the reason why you can't go forward when you spent so much of the season together, it was like, well, at least come up with something different. Like maybe if you saw something in real life that didn't align with what you were told in the pods, then maybe you would have a point. But to cite something that you pointed out from the beginning, I don't really know how I feel about that. But anyways, she says that she was hurt at the fact that Jordan said he regrets introducing Luca to her. But she says she gets it. I'm sure now, with the news that she's about to drop, she further understands why he said what he said. But Jordan does come in and he says, it's not an issue of character. I don't think that Megan is a bad person. It's just that I want stability for my son, right? Like, I'm a single dad. We got a lot going on. He has, health complications and stuff. I want to make his life as easy as possible. And introducing him to somebody who 1 second was supposed to be in our lives forever, and then the next second is just not in our lives at all. It can be a little tumultuous for a young kid. But listen, like I said in the last review, I think in about a few years, Luca not gonna remember nothing, okay? He gonna forget. She wasn't around enough to make a substantial impact unless he watches the show or something. So I understand where Jordan is coming from, but it's fine. You went with your heart. You believed in that relationship at the time. And so I don't think that he should beat himself up for, introducing his son to somebody who he believed was going to be his forever person. If this was a pattern, everybody who you start dating gets to meet Luca, then we got an issue. You know what I'm saying? At that point, that is a problem. So then they pan over to Megan and she has an announcement. She does say that she did have a baby 2.5 months ago. It is a baby boy. I forget his name. Hold on. It's something... Carson? No, it's not Carson. Not Tucker. I'm just going to be naming a lot of stereotypical names. Let me stop myself right there. But yeah, she has a beautiful baby boy. They showed it pictures. He's so cute. He's adorable. He's so cute. So yeah, the whole crowd is like, oh. Her man is also in the audience. Everybody's like, oh. We also learned that her man is a CEO. The man is breaded up. Okay, the man got money. So apparently how they met was that a friend of hers introduced them like about 2-ish months after filming the show. And 3 months into them dating, they got pregnant. So things moved very quickly. I can't say too much. I cannot judge. And I'll tell you why at the end of this video. But like, yeah, things moved very fast between them, but they do seem to be happy. I feel like she said at the beginning things were a little bit rocky, or was that? Oh no, I think that was Joe and his partner. Yeah, I think Joe and his partner had a rocky start, but these two seem to have hit it off from the get-go. So happy for them. Happy they have a bouncing, happy, healthy baby. We love that for them. It did look like Jordan was hurt just a smidge, but he does say he knew that she did have a child. The way that he found out, though, was that an anonymous person did DM him on Instagram saying, hey, by the way, she has a kid by Mike. And so he did reach out to Megan and she was like, no, it's not by Mike, but I do have a child. So yeah, he found out around the time that we did. Oof. But she kept it from everybody. The only person who really knew what was going on was Casey. So they actually transitioned to bringing out Casey, Kate, and Patrick. So Patrick says that he had an idea. The reason why things ended with Casey was because of his appearance, but he just wanted to hear it. And so to watch it back, he was like, damn, but also at least he got the answers that he was looking for. I mean, it's gotta be painful as somebody like Patrick, who literally came in with a complex about his appearance and, you know, all that comes with being an Asian person in a predominantly white environment. So it's already hard to hear, and then it's harder to hear with that kind of, you know, weight on you coming in. But I mean, I'm glad he did get the answers, because it seems like he was just going on and on and on, like throughout the time before the show filmed, just thinking, you know, what the hell happened? Like, we did have hopes of trying something. And when you do watch that scene of her breaking up with him, it is confusing. She is basically saying, you know, the buck ends here, but she's also being very affectionate with him and giving him hope that maybe things could go somewhere. It was very confusing. So I do understand him feeling that need to hear the answer, as painful as it may be. I do kind of wish that the show, I mean, that's expecting a lot from Love is Blind, to be honest with you, but I do kind of wish that the show touched on his complex with, you know, his heritage and growing up in a predominantly white space, because I think that's real. It's a thing that a lot of people experience. I mean, hell, I have gone through a lot of commentary about me being dark skinned, me being an African, people asking how we got to Canada in the first place. Like, did we come on a boat? Legitimately, did we come on a boat? Do we have toothbrushes? Do we have Wi-Fi? How are we able to buy our tickets? As if my dad wasn't an engineer and my mom wasn't a dentist. It's absolutely crazy. So I do understand, you know, those feelings that he was harboring throughout his life. It's just sad that it came across on camera as like a self-hating thing. And I know that Anna had similar feelings to him. So I kind of wish that they touched on it a little bit. But anyways, Casey was acting as if she was responding to him in the way that she was at the breakup because she was trying to protect him. Girl, who you think you're fooling? Because you only fooled Patrick. Nobody else was buying the BS that you were trying to protect him. You didn't want to come across as the bad guy, especially because you saw this as a come up. I don't know what person, actually I do know a person who has exposed themselves before. A few people have, actually. You know, y'all really got to think it through when you come on the show. If you think this is going to be your come up, you have to have all your ducks in a row, all of them. And if you tune in a few episodes from now, I am going to talk about some people who did not have their ducks in a row. Child, my most iconic moments from Love is Blind, we're going to talk about that. But Casey sold herself by saying, you know, her ex encouraged her to go on a show and they would just get back together. And he also encouraged her to go on Love is Blind and that they would just get back together. Already you're seeming like a clout chaser. So when you're on camera breaking up with somebody, you definitely want to come across as somebody who didn't mean it in a malicious way so that maybe you can still get some kind of clout coming off the show. But girl, it wasn't nobody was drinking that Kool-Aid. I was going to say nobody was buying what you were selling. And they kind of got mixed up, but y'all know what I'm trying to say. So the whole ring thing comes up again. I don't know why this is always a debacle. The people don't buy the damn rings. The show does. So he claims that he thought that things were going to proceed between them. And so that's why he gave her permission to hold on to the ring. So she was like, well, you told me to hold on to the ring. So I held on to the ring. She even brought it to the reunion. So Nick Lachey was like, well, I could deliver the ring over if that's what we're doing. Or should I give it to somebody in production? Because apparently y'all don't even buy the rings anyways. And I'm like, yeah, can we do that? Can we do that? Like, Patrick was trying to make it seem like, oh, it's the principle. What's the principle? You didn't purchase the ring. And he's like, well, it's not about the money. Then what is it about? What is it about? Give it back to production. I was just so confused by that. And even production isn't asking for the ring. So why are you fiending for the ring? But anyways, this reminds me of when Marshall was asking for the ring from, what was that girl's name? Y'all know the girl with the curly hair. But yeah, that was just very weird to me. But anyways, he gives her the opportunity to wipe the slate clean. He's like, you know what? I'm not even doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. I said, oh, Patrick, you're not coming off as noble as you think. But he's like, yeah, I just want to give you the opportunity to truly apologize and be remorseful, because I don't like seeing the internet talk about you in this way. I really don't like it at all, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, you want this for you. You want her to apologize to you. You're not trying to save her or anything. This girl was quiet. Not a word came out of her mouth in that moment. They could have cut out her apology, but she did not apologize. And honestly, a lot of people don't like it when I say this, but I appreciate a person who stands on business. Now, in all other aspects, Casey does not stand on business. But in this moment, if you don't want to apologize for something, don't give nobody a half-ass apology. Just don't apologize. That's what I think. I think you should apologize for wronging people. But if you don't want to apologize, save it. Don't even bother. Don't give me no frou-frou apology because oftentimes that even hurts the person more. Just save it. And in that moment, she did. They then do this whole shooting competition thing with Chris Paul. What the hell? Y'all just be out here wasting time. Thankfully, we didn't go through a whole catch up with everybody from previous seasons, which is shocking because AD, well, maybe it happened after the reunion was filmed, but AD and Ollie just got married the other day. And Homegirl has some things to say to her haters. She said, address me as Mrs. Sutherland if you're going to address me, because I know y'all going to talk about me anyways. Y'all love to bring up my past, but in future, I am Mrs. Sutherland when you are talking to me. So I thought maybe they would bring that in. Netflix's Love is Blind universe thing does love the whole AD Ollie of it all. So that was surprising to me that they didn't highlight that. But even more surprising was bringing Chris Paul to play basketball. I didn't understand that. So Casey is then asked, if she was interested in anybody else, and she's acting like, maybe. We know it was Joe, okay? We know it was Joe. And both of them are seemingly unaware of how things started and how things ended and how long things were going while they were going. And I'm thinking, y'all do know that there are people out here who were witnessing your relationship, right? They can easily corroborate stories. Like you would rather wouldn't you rather control the narrative than have other people write the narrative for you? But anyways, both of them just didn't want to be clear on what happened in their relationship. But Madison is clear. Madison feels as if the reason why her relationship ended was because of Casey. And at first, they were denying it. Actually, I think they continue to deny it. And Madison does open up about what we spoke about, I think, in the last video, where she said that after the tux fitting. They all went out and she was gushing about her man, but then she did see that Casey was all over Joe. And that next night, he did break up with her. So she believes that Casey and Joe's connection is the reason why they broke up. And I'm with Joe on this one. Joe was like, well, it wasn't that. And I'm like, girl, it was not that. I'm sure that didn't help. That didn't help the matter, but that was not the reason why they broke up. So then Casey says that Madison says that Casey said to her they were Eskimo sisters, and she was very hurt by that. Why does Casey say under her breath, but it was a joke? Not too much, baby girl. Because aren't you the same one who was upset with Patrick for saying to you, hey, ex-wifey? And what did he say in response? It was a joke. So other people could tell a joke, but you can tell a joke. And to be honest with you, that Eskimo sisters joke is more offensive than, hey, ex-wifey, if we're being honest. But anyways, speaking of jokes, it seemed like Joe was taking his entire relationship with Madison as a joke. And I really did feel for the girl. Even when they were walking in, she already just looked sad. People are walking in, maybe they're not really paying attention, but once they see the crowd, they start to smile. Madison did not smile. Not at all. She was maybe smiling at the end of their segment or when Edmond was talking or stuff like that. But for the most part, she still looked sad. And I really did feel bad for her. Joe claims that there was no crossover with anybody. There was no crossover with Madison and Casey. There was no crossover with Casey and his current girlfriend, Avery. Now, Kate comes into the situation because she's actually friends with Avery. And she's like, well, you did, have Casey and Avery at the same party and you were, canoodling with the both of them. And he's like, oh, but Avery is your friend. I thought you came with her. But then Casey turns around and she's like, they were together at the party because they showed up together. So which one is it, Joe? Did y'all show up together or did Kate bring her? I'm not quite sure. But anyways, Joe and Kate's stories are definitely conflicting because Kate says that there was so much drama that night, obviously surrounding Joe and all of that. Casey is with Joe and saying that there was no drama at all. She has no problem with Avery, but Avery was just on a podcast basically saying that she was being messy boots, she being Casey, and there was an overlap in their relationship. So I'm interested to know why the story is not storying. We have Casey and Joe, who, in my opinion, are just trying to not come across worse than they already do. And then obviously Joe is currently in this relationship, so he does not want to get in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Joe was taking everything as a joke, like I said. And the thing that hurt Madison the most was how Joe talked about her appearance. She says in this day and age, it is unacceptable to speak about somebody's body like that. And he does apologize. He did say, though, that his attraction to her was genuine. He said, I mean, it's true. On the show, all we did was fight and F. So some people chuckled from that. Madison did not chuckle. And I do think it was interesting. However, how he would talk about her body was as if she was a tree monster. And I'm just like, it literally is just her shape. She's not. And I don't think that he was super disparaging either. I also want to make that clear. From what we saw, I don't think he has said the worst things. I think somebody like Shake has said way worse things. But yeah, I feel like the things that he did say, it was just there was no reason for that. If you don't like the girl, you could just say you don't like the girl. You don't really have to go into the details, especially because people are going to feel sensitive about that. And Madison did say we're already, availing ourselves to so much criticism. So the fact that you just swung that door right open, it did hurt me. And so I do understand where she's coming from. And he did apologize. And it seems like she accepted. She said she accepted maybe just to save face, but it looks like she's still a little bit hurt by Joe in his entirety. On to Nick. Nick feels like the last conversation he had with Kate was a good one. It was closure, but after watching it back, he does realize how insensitive he is. And he does admit that he mishandled Kate in the pods. He did use Faith to evade accountability, and he was doing a lot of love bombing. You can tell that Annie has been tapped on the shoulder. I don't know by who, or maybe she saw a lot of the negative commentary and said, I will not be cooked any further, because the way she did not want to slander Nick at all. We were seeing worse things coming from Kate towards Nick than Annie towards Nick, and Annie was engaged to him. And I said, oh, somebody definitely spoke to her. Either somebody spoke to her or she had received enough vitriol online and she said, this will not go any further. But anyways, this whole love bombing thing was an issue that they're trying to address, and Nick doesn't necessarily see it as love bombing because he was just being true to his feelings or whatever. But Kate is like, it's one thing to say I love you to somebody very quickly, but it's another thing to be like, I will always love you, nothing will ever change about that, I'm ready to do this and this and this with you, I can see this kind of future with you, whatever. You are really trying to sell her this dream that you weren't even confident you'd be able to make come true. You know what I'm saying? And then for something that you misunderstood to be the reason why you break up after saying you love somebody and that you're never not going to love them, it definitely gives love bombing. Definitely. I do also think we have watered down the term love bombing, but in this moment, he definitely was selling her a dream he couldn't cash out on. Selling her a dream he couldn't fulfill. Let's just go with that. I also did notice the way that Annie was speaking, it sounded very different to how she was talking on the show. I never said it in the videos because I don't think it was necessary to say. It didn't actually have to do with anything that was going on in the relationships. But she sounded, I don't know. I don't even think it's worth explaining. But she just sounds very different. And she sounds like she watched herself back or heard commentary about herself and wanted to present differently. And if that's the case, it kind of makes me feel sad. You know, I would hate for people to come on the show and feel like they have to change themselves in order to be embraced by the masses. You be you no matter what, okay? And, you know, people were saying a lot of things about Annie, but to even change her cadence of speech simply because people probably said things about her speech is sad. It is sad, but that's me assuming. So let's move on from that. Annie does say that she was forcing things in her relationship. She didn't feel like that at the time, but watching it back, she does realize that she was the only one fighting for this relationship. And if he wasn't so adamant on breaking things off, she actually would have proceeded, which falls in line with what we were thinking. I was like, this lady wants to get married no matter what. The relationship was not making sense. And she still was like, well, I would like a ring. I would like a ring. I would like a diamond ring. Like, she just wants a ring. She just wanted a ring. And she kind of confirmed that in this moment. Nick and Joe do talk about their weird tension, and they say that that was something that was squashed so long ago. Joe does say the reason why he had these strong feelings towards Nick was because he was friends with Brendan, and so yeah, maybe he said some unsavory things in Nick's direction, and he did apologize for that. I think it's interesting how they didn't talk about the alcohol consumption. I have two theories on that. Number one, maybe it's something that he's in denial about because the way that he was drinking a lot, because we know that they drink on the show, but he seemed like a very sloppy drunk. Yeah, maybe he just doesn't want to address that or doesn't want to perpetuate these like storylines about him. I also think on the other hand, the show is aware that they make alcohol very accessible. And that's been an issue that they've had for years beforehand. That whole lawsuit that was started by, I think his name is Jeremy. He's from like a very early season, like season 2 or something like that. He was talking about how easily accessible alcohol is and how you're more likely to get an alcoholic beverage than you are some food. Right? So I think if they were to harp on the alcohol consumption of things, it would now call into question the ethics of Love is Blind. And maybe the show just didn't want to go there. But I was like, yeah, when we saw him speak, you know, unkindly about Nick, it was referring to, I mean, it did include him being a bit intoxicated. That's why he was so loose with his words. But anyways, we hear that Kate and Brendan did go on a date and they had intentions of going on another date. But at their second outing, it was a whole group outing. And she says that things ended with Brendan because Casey was all over him, allegedly, because according to Casey, she was not on that man. She was not all over Brendan, and she feels like that is a bold face lie. Well, Casey, I don't know. Because it seems like anybody who, you do have a little bit of interest in, you just be all over them. She was trying to deny it with Joe too, but that's already been corroborated by a few people now. So I don't believe what she's saying. I believe Kate. And honestly, up until this point, Kate ain't got a reason to lie. Everything that Kate has said seems to have been the truth. So I believe her perspective more than I do Casey's, because Casey has proven to be a liar. Kate has proven to be a truth teller at this point. Next is Allie and Anton. They briefly touch on his drinking. They talk about how she brought up religion and stuff in the pods, and so she was confused that he was such a heavy drinker outside of the pods, because that's not the impression she got based on the limited conversations that they had. And so Anton says that his friend's girlfriend's comments were completely out of line, and he feels like she was just looking for her 15 minutes of fame. I think he said they're not together. It was such a passing comment that I'm not sure, but I hope they're not together anymore, because if you're talking about this, about your friend's girlfriend, big yikes. And honestly, the way that relationship moved so quickly, I wouldn't be surprised if they're not together. But if they are together, you speaking very boldly about one of your friend's girls. Like, I know certain friend groups that does not fly at all. But that's what he said. He said she's just out here for clout. So Allie is confused how they didn't have certain conversations. She even says that after that girl said what she said, they didn't even debrief about it. Anton feels like he did. He said that they stayed back and they had a few drinks and they touched on it, but he also couldn't really remember exactly what the conversation was about. So that's a theme with these two. We barely saw y'all in the pause, and I don't think it's because they weren't having dates, but they probably weren't dates of substance. And so the show was trying to really drive the point home that these two don't really know each other, And I'm thinking to myself, were you guys even ready for marriage? Because the types of conversations you had, it didn't seem to be very deep. And then when it came time to have deep conversations, it was just like conflict all the time. It just feels like marriage or a serious relationship was just not where you guys were supposed to be at that time. I mean, Anton has now been in a serious relationship. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, when these two met, maybe this just wasn't the headspace that they were supposed to be in. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, it's not a surprise to me that at the altar, they were basically strangers, because throughout this process, they were basically strangers. She said that, they spoke about religion, and they also spoke about her ambitions and how she was looking for a man who was going to be able to provide. This is something that is common in his culture and in her own culture. So the fact that sometimes Anton took issue with that really took her off guard, because she believes that she made it clear she was looking for a man who provides. I actually feel like Anton doesn't have an issue being a provider for a woman who is willing to be that trad wife. And that's not what Allie wanted to do. But it's also a bit confusing, because Allie is like, Anton was one way with me and then a different way when the cameras were rolling. I feel like he was a lot more outgoing in the life of the party, which is what I wanted whenever the cameras were rolling. But when it was just him and I, he doesn't really want to talk to me. He doesn't debrief after work. Like, it was like we were ships passing in the night, right? But the thing is, when his mom came over, did she not say to the mom, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I can't wait to stay home and raise the kids and stuff. But now she's saying that has never been a thing that she wants. She does want to raise her kids, but she also has her own ambitions that she wants to pursue. And she wants to be with a man who's still able to provide for her, even while she's pursuing said ambitions. So I don't know. I feel like if he's performing for the cameras, you were also performing for the cameras. There's so much I want to say about Allie, but let me pace myself, okay? So then she says that her first sign that things weren't really going to work between them, it's a petty thing, but it was on the honeymoon when he was wearing his like slides, and she was like, yeah, no, basically gave me the egg. And I'm glad she said that, Because this is what I was thinking at the end of their wedding thing. Was she ever genuinely attracted to him? And as something as simple as flip-flops gave you the ick, I feel like you weren't sold on his appearance to begin with. Let's be so honest. Even her little comment about, oh, why are your eyes always open when you kiss? Why are you eyeing him down while you kissing too? Like, you are clearly disengaged in this moment. I think maybe she heard dollar signs, dollar bill, yo, in the pods and ran with it and then realized that attraction ain't there though. So I don't know if I can put up with some of his behavior if that attraction isn't there for me. That is my personal opinion, but hey, he did make a comment that made me believe that he probably was a functioning alcoholic and maybe has sought intervention for that. He said, yeah, sometimes it was hard for me to open up after work, especially because, you know, you're tired from coming off your shift. You come home and at the time you crack a beer. And I said, oh, that sounds like that's a behavior that he was used to doing, and that's something that he doesn't do anymore. I wonder if he does acknowledge that maybe his drinking habits were excessive and that needed to be mitigated, or if that was just, I don't know, if I'm just interpreting what he said in a different way. But I thought that was interesting for him to say. He does also tell us that he has been in a relationship for about a year now, which is good. She looks like she really suits him, honestly. Maybe she doesn't like attention though, because when the camera panned to her, she did not look very excited about that. But anyways, Allie refuses to confirm if she's in a relationship. And I mean, okay. I mean, it gave very much Huda energy, you know, Netflix, I can't speak. You know, now Allie can't use Netflix because you on Netflix. She can't use Netflix as a reason to not disclose her relationship status. But I just thought for people who were coming on a show about dating and stuff, like, we would like to know if you dating. We don't need to know his name or anything like that, but, or their name. I don't know. Might not be a man. I thought it was weird that she was just like, I'm glad that you're interested in my dating life, but I don't want to okay. All right. Last but not least, because the show was taking so damn long to get to KB and Edmond, as we know, KB also thought that Edmond was different on camera than he was in person. And she says that as time went on, she did realize that he was weaponizing his tears. When she pulled out that note from her bra, I was thinking, oh my gosh, did this lady come with receipts? Because people oftentimes think, oh, I'm going to have my mic drop moment. Let me bring my receipts. Let me put a chip in my nails, or let me bring a folder. Only certain people can truly execute a read. And other people just be flopping. So thankfully, when she pulled out the paper, it was just because she has a bad memory. And so she wanted to make sure that she hit all her points when addressing Edmond and her relationship. I too believe that Edmond would weaponize his tears. I surely do. Because the times that we did see him cry, it was always in retaliation. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm overcome with emotions right now and that the result is tearing up. It was, I'm not getting my way, I'm going to cry. Or it's looking like I'm not going to get my way. Let me say that I'm on the verge of tears. He did that a few times. And then we saw him full on cry a few times too. And then Nick Lachey is going to say, well, you know, I'm an emotional guy too. So maybe it was just a matter of him just being emotional. Like, do you really think it was him? He was weaponized. Nick, did you not watch the show, Nick? Like, come on. Oh, and speaking of Nicks, no, maybe I'll talk about this at another time. I wanted to talk about the other Nick and how Kate basically said he was very performative, and it's almost like he had a guidebook on how to pursue a woman. So real. But anyways, this Nick, the host, was irritating me because watching the show, you could easily tell that those tears were weaponized. Now, Edmond rebuttals and he's like, well, I never intended to manipulate anything. Like, I genuinely had feelings for you. And sometimes I was overwhelmed and that was the result, but I wasn't trying to manipulate you. I don't think it was a matter of, if I cry, I'm going to like get my way with her. But a learned behavior, you even see it in children, is typically when a child doesn't get their way, they cry. And because a lot of people don't want to deal with the tears, they just give the child what they want. So sometimes it's not an active thing of, let me mess with your psyche so that I get my way. But you have learned in the past that leaning into your emotions gets you out of some sticky situations. And maybe people are like, you know what, fine, I'll take it easy on you. Or they just don't address the thing at all. Or they give you whatever it is that you're crying over. So yeah, it might not have been a deliberate tactic for him, but he was absolutely weaponizing those tears. I will be honest, after seeing her frustration with having to deal with Edmond on the show, maybe she did actually have feelings for him. That's big coming from me, because all the while I thought, Calibria, baby girl, you came here for a platform. You just needed a plan. You know what I'm saying? But it really seemed like she was hurt. And she actually unless she's pulling an okie doke on me, I believed her. I did. So she spoke about how, the tears affected her and how he was very dismissive to her a lot. And he literally had moments on the show where he would apologize for being dismissive or doing certain things. But now he doesn't recall anything. Oh, I don't remember. Oh, my memory is just so bad. Weaponized incompetence yet again. Man loves to weaponize things, but he just doesn't realize. So yeah, she doesn't appreciate how he made her look like an angry Black woman. And then he turns around and he's like, well, sometimes you were PMSing. That triggered me, baby. That triggered me. He was like, yeah, well, sometimes you were PMSing, or, you would just want your space. And so I didn't want to agitate you more. And I'm thinking, what that got to do with what she's saying right now? Sometimes you would be very dismissive to the point where she would get riled up. Granted, she did not have to speak to him in the way that she did near the end of their relationship. But let's not act like you didn't have a part to play in why she got so agitated with you. It wasn't the fact that the fact that she was PMSing or whatever. Is that you weren't an active participant in this relationship, or you would evade accountability often. And now, like he's doing on the stage, act confused and doesn't recall and all kinds of things. I was very irritated at that. Now, me personally, I didn't think that Calibria came across as an angry Black woman. What I've learned this year is that people are going to lean into whatever negative tropes they want to, simply because they can. Racism is alive and well, and I'm not just talking about towards Black people. In general, it is alive and well and unfortunately thriving. So even when Calibria is showing a moment of frustration, some people who refuse to want to see the nuance in the situation will say, angry Black woman. And so I did understand why she was frustrated by that. I'm even thinking of, was it 2 seasons ago? I think it was 2 seasons ago. It was Alex and Tim. I think those are their names. And Alex was like, you have no idea how many times I had to die to self to try and protect this man, Tim, because I did not want him to come across like the angry Black man on camera. We know that that's very detrimental in our community. It's very detrimental to perpetuate these kind of stereotypes. Even if that's not what's actually happening, we know that if people just see a glimpse of something, they're going to run with it. You know what I'm saying? I even remember, I think it was on the Vile Files, I even remember them questioning Olandria and them being like, oh, she's so fake because she was just so stoic for most of the season. And they thought her real personality was when she got irritated with Taylor. Sorry, I skipped over to Love Island. I'm so sorry. I'll get back to Love Island. Love is Blind. But they immediately thought that's your real character. When she finally broke and showed frustration and was very pissed off with Taylor, they thought that was her real, demeanor. Like, there's no way she could be so stoic and poised and articulate. There's just no way. That's very disgusting. But in our community, we're aware of that. And so I do feel Calibria when she's like, I hated the fact that he allowed for that trope to be placed on me with the way that he was dealing with me. Now, what I was going to say was I didn't actually see her as an angry Black woman. I didn't appreciate how she spoke to him on that mountain, though. I did not like how she called him the B word. But to say that she came across as an angry Black woman, I think most of her frustrations were absolutely justified. Absolutely absolutely justified. Edmond just kept doing things that like anybody would want to pull their hair out. Are you kidding me? So I understood where she was coming from. Completely understood where she was coming from. I would have loved for the show to take a moment and address how Edmond came across and to explain why they thought, or to have him explain why he thought he was ready for marriage. Because it never gave that to me. Edmond never gave ready for marriage. And like the fact that he was casted, to me, the fact that he was cast, was very irresponsible. Yeah, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I think him being on the show was quite irresponsible, both for his sake and for the sake of whoever was wanting to pursue a relationship, just because like clearly there's so much going on with Edmond that somebody would need to be equipped to deal with that, or to handle. Sorry, sometimes saying deal with, rubs people the wrong way, for somebody to like handle what all came with Edmond. So I would have loved for them to have a segment where he explained why he felt like this was his time. He even said on the finale, I feel like this was supposed to be my best opportunity to find somebody. Why is that? That's just my thought. But anyways, I actually, there was a moment where he was confused a lot. So KB would talk about a specific scenario where he dismissed her or where he weaponized his tears. He doesn't remember. She gave play by play. It was on this day. We were here. These people were around. This is what happened. Oh, I don't remember. I'm so confused. I'm just so confused. You're confused. What are you confused about? You confused where you went wrong, even though you were making apologies. So are you saying that the things that you were apologizing for on the show were just BS? You didn't even feel like you should apologize? Because now you don't recall nothing. You confused. I'm confused. We're all confused. Shout out Shelly. Everybody's just confused. What I did appreciate, though, was that Vanessa did call him out. And she said, I do understand that you have a traumatic past, right? That is something that you guys talked about on the show. And because of that, you might have a tendency to block out a lot of negative experiences because that's just how you've been coping through life. However, the person who's on the receiving end of you blocking that out could feel very hurt, could feel overlooked, could feel dismissed. And I just want you to acknowledge that. And I was like, come on, Vanessa. She be pissing me off a lot of times, but this time you were on the money with that one. She was on the money. And I appreciated that because oftentimes everybody just overlooks Edmond's behavior because of his past and because of this infantilization. There were so many things that he just didn't do right. And I didn't appreciate how that was just being overlooked because of his past. Like, yes, your trauma is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. And yeah, you not healing from that, or you not realizing that there is a healing that needs to be done from that, did unfortunately hurt another person. KB herself does realize that she did hurtful things as well. And so she apologizes for cussing at him. She says that nobody should ever be spoken to in that way, which is interesting because I did see a TikTok from her where it seemed like she was confused why she was getting a lot of like pushback from the audience, but now she's apologizing for having spoken to him in that way. And she hopes that he never accepts that kind of love from anyone. And I thought that was great. I thought that was great because feel how you feel. I don't believe name calling ever makes sense. I know when I was talking about calling somebody a B word, some people's rebuttal is like, well, some people do act like a bitch and whatever. If you're telling me you actually want to be in a healthy relationship, what is that going to do? What is that going to do? How does that help anybody? How does cussing at me help anybody? How does dismissing me help anybody? Like, I feel like there's such a big responsibility when you are in relationship with people, let alone a very intimate relationship that you want to lead to marriage. You have to put your pride aside and think, okay, maybe they are acting like a bitch right now in this moment, but I cannot stoop to the point where I say that to them and might cause irreparable damage. You know what I'm saying? So I loved that she said that. Yeah, I mean, even in my in my relationship, we get offended by what did he say to me once? One time he called me bro, and I said, Don't you call me bro." And then the next time I called him bro, and he was like, "Hey," and I said, "Yeah." I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. We're not even saying bro to each other. If this man called me or if I called him, it would be game over. Game over. And not even to say that the relationship would end right there, but now I feel like we would be making ourselves susceptible to having a toxic relationship. So yeah, if you're one of those people who feels like it's okay to call your partner out their name like that, seek help. I don't know what to tell you. But that is the reunion for Love is Blind. I wasn't too mad at it the way that I saw some people on the internet being mad at it. I think for the season we got, this was actually quite a decent reunion. It was kind of on par with what we received for the last few weeks. Yeah, I'm going to do another video talking about like my last impressions from the season, kind of getting deeper into some of the themes that were going on with this cast. But yeah, that's it. What would I rate this reunion? Let me rate the season and the reunion. The season, I'll give it a 6. I'll give it a 6 because last season I'll give that a 4. If even that. The reunion, I think I'll also give it a 6. I had a few questions that I did want answered, but I think they did touch on a lot of stuff, especially a lot of the extracurricular activities, which I did appreciate because sometimes they don't really touch on that too much. They want to focus on what happened on the show. Or, okay, I was going to say, or sometimes when somebody comes with like a baby or in a new relationship, they don't like to hold them accountable. But I do think that they tried to address the things with Joe, even though he's in a relationship. Not so much Anton, but they did touch on some touchy things, and he's also in a relationship. They could have asked a bit more regarding Megan because Megan knew from the pods that things were off, but because she got a baby, I feel like maybe they didn't want to press too much because that's just what they do. So maybe that's what was missing for me. But overall, I think, yeah, it's on par with the season. So I'm not too mad at it. You guys let me know your thoughts down below on the reunion and maybe anything else you've been seeing online. I hope I do get a chance to like watch the interviews that are to come. Oftentimes a post-season drama is more dramatic than the season itself. So I will keep my ear to the streets. But until then, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.